Welcome, and thank you for joining our webinar today on financial order integrity and key controls in offers and orders environment. We really appreciate you joining. We also appreciate all those of you that submitted questions prior to the webinar, and we'll work to get to those as well as additional questions that are being submitted during the webinar at the end when we do a panel. I would also like to note that today this document that we will be talking about a bit through this webinar has been published, and we'll share links and QR codes so that you can easily get to it while we're going through the webinar as well. So thank you. First off, my name is Katie Little, and I'll be moderating our panel today and leading our webinar. But I also am joined by 3 expert panelists, and so I want to go ahead and introduce them now. And if you'll come on camera when I introduce you, that would be great. So let's start with Miriam Berger. Miriam is with Swiss International Airlines, and she has the honor of being both the chair of the Airline Retailing for Finance Working Group under IFAC, as well as being the chair of the Settlement and Accounting Standards Board. So we welcome Miriam today and her expertise, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. So next up is Roxana Pawani. And Roxana, if you'll come on camera. And Roxana is joining us today. She's with Emirates, and with the Emirates Group, she's the Senior Manager for Revenue Services, and she's also a member of the IFAC advisory, or the IFAC, Industry Financial Services Working Group. And additionally, she's also on the Settlement and Accounting Standards Board. Thank you, Roxana. And then last but certainly not least, my colleague, Andrei Grinchenko. And Andrei is the head of Industry Architecture and Global Standards here at IATA. And he'll be bringing the views from IATA and from the industry expertise as well. So thank you, Andrei. Okay, so with that, I'm going to briefly talk about what we're going to do today, the agenda, and then we'll get into it. So what we'll be doing first off is we'll set the scene, and I'll have Andrei do that with just a brief overview of standards and governance, the reference business architecture, where we are now, and what's coming next. And all of this is in the context of financial order integrity and key controls. Over the last year, in 2024, the Airline Retailing for Finance Working Group has worked on updating the financial management guidance for the industry to include aspects of financial order integrity and key controls. So previously in 2023, they had produced a document just surrounding the view of financial management, and then the update has been completed and is published now. And we'll be sharing the links and QR codes, as I said, as we go through this webinar. And then after Andrei shares that overview, we'll have a roundtable discussion where we'll talk with each of our panelists about from their expertise, both at an industry level and as well as how they work with that within their airline. So thank you so much for everyone for joining. And Andrei, if you'll go ahead and come on screen and go ahead and give us an overview. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kitty, and thank you and welcome everybody. So I don't want to take too much of anybody's time because I think it's probably much more interesting to get into the discussion with the industry experts. But just a few slides here to give everybody an overview of where we stand and where we're going, and sort of see if we can put it in a bit of a context as well. Now, first of all, to see that everybody kind of understands where it fits in from a governance perspective, here I have a summary slide for how the governance works. Now, I think Kitty's mentioned already the advisory councils, of which there are a few, but the advisory council that we work with the most is Industry Financial Advisory Council. So as you see, it's there to advise the board of governance and that advises to the DG. And then we have standard setting traffic conferences that run independently or run as self-sovereign entities. And here we're mostly dealing with passenger services and tariffs conferences, which is jointly operated and jointly referred to as a passenger standards conference. So again, this is quite a simplified view of the governance, but this is how these different documents that we're producing, or different documents that the industry is producing, or standards that are being set, are being worked on and are being produced and are being published. So again, that's just for context, and obviously there's a lot more about it on IATA website if you want to dwell into the details of it. On the standard side, and more in specific relationship to modern airline retailing, I think most of you would probably be familiar with what we call an MER house, or sort of like a summary view of what modern airline retailing entails and what offers and orders-based distribution entails. So here we're looking at a few different pillars within which we do have a set of standards or resolutions or recommended practices that deal with particular functional domains within modern airline retailing framework. So as you can see here, we have some recommended practices that govern certain aspects of digital identity. We do have resolutions and recommended practices that govern selling with offers and allowing us to develop the standards and publish standards in this area. And then lastly, but not least, is fulfilling with orders, where we also maintain a number of resolutions and recommended practices that allow us to do it. But this is not all. These are functional domains which are being worked on by the experts and in these particular areas. But to connect the dots across these domains, what we also maintain is an end-to-end view, which is governed through Recommended Practice 1786A, also known as Business Reference Architecture. Now, Business Reference Architecture represents an end-to-end overview of distribution lifecycle, and it touches on different capabilities within each of the functional domains and allows us to see an end-to-end picture and interconnectivity between different business capabilities that airlines are suggested to maintain to attain to modern airline retailing. There is another overarching recommended practice that kind of spans across through the entire distribution lifecycle, and this is what is referred to as a Standard Retailer and Supplier Interline Agreement, or SORCIA, which is also known as Recommended Practice 1780S. So it also helps us to connect the dots through the end-to-end journey, is clearly when it deals with interline type transactions, or more broadly supplier and retailer relationships, where it may include intermodal or other types of partnerships that may be taking a benefit of this SORCIA agreement. So this is the overall framework that we work with, and to put it in the context, just a few words around business reference architecture. Now, this is how it looks like, and don't worry if you cannot read it on the screen. We have plenty of materials available around it. We did do a few webinars that actually went into the details of this reference architecture entails, but this is again just to demonstrate how the end-to-end framework works and how different elements are glued together, all the way from, say, customer management, contract management, down to offer order management, to delivery, and ultimately to financial management, which is, of course, of interest and is in scope of our discussion in our webinar today. More specifically on financial management, we also had a webinar on it when this was first produced and published. But again, to give you an idea, it expands into a more detailed subset of capabilities below those 6 high-level capabilities. So as you can see here, we identify more specific or more detailed capabilities under customer order management, partner and supplier, order accounting, general accounting, which includes capabilities around revenue recognition, cost accrual, and so on and so forth. And then it goes into more into detailing sort of more generic corporate financial management functions around corporate finance, around enterprise performance management, and finally tax management, which is on one hand could be looked at as a relatively generic corporate set of capabilities. However, in our particular case with the aviation industry, then clearly we have quite a huge complexity around airline-specific relationship with taxes and fees and charges, which we further detail there as well. Again, we're not going to dwell on the details of it today. It's just for context, but I do invite you to have a look at it in more details and perhaps listen to some of the earlier versions of this webinar. Now, to get into the work that the group that version 2 of the document we're discussing entails and what the group did in last year, what I'd like to start with is, again, for just for scene setting, I think many of you would also be aware of these air retailing and financial management principles. I think it's been talked about in the industry for quite a long time at different events and different instances about the move from being record centric to customer centric, about airlines being in control of the offers and orders and distribution channels. That's about having the ability to sell anything through any channel. And it's about being open and modular and capability based in terms of architecture that different systems to support it are designed upon. Now, this is also about having it designed for the future as opposed to trying to retrofit within the limits of current or pre-existing systems. Now, how does it convert into financial management? Well, again, there's been quite a few industry discussions around it, and in a nutshell, it converts into a set of high-level financial management principles. I mean, first and foremost is that we're looking at removing any sort of need for reconciling across different types of artifacts that our industry is operating with today, whether it's PNRs or e-tickets or EMDs or whatever else that may be out there. It's about having everything stored within the same order record, which becomes the single source of truth for any of the customer interactions. It's about having internal values at the service level to be stored up front in the order, and that's a very important principle because it drives a lot of the other work that has been done either at the advisory councils level or at the standards level. And it's about end of pricing delegation, where the pricing is controlled by the airline, and that also ultimately links to the fact that order becomes the focal point of any of the further actions that need to be done on any level for that matter. In our specific case, on the financial management level or on the accounting level. So there is no corrections that should or could ever happen outside of the order. Everything from a financial perspective, everything has to go through an order change process to a reshop and an order change process, and as such be properly reflected on the accounting side. So these are the principles, and this is what governs and directs pretty much the entire body of work that is being done either at Airline Retailing for finance level or at the standards conference side within the perimeter of Settlement and Accounting Standards Board. Now, in terms of what version 2 of the document includes, now what we're talking about is financial order integrity as one of the key topics of the document. What does it mean? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward and pretty simple. It's about accuracy, it's about consistency, it's about compliance, regulatory fiscal compliance, and it's about security and reliability of the order to be used as the single source of truth to drive any of the financial management activities, any of the accounting activities. It's about expectation from the financial management that any of the upstream solutions are embracing the first time right principle, whether it relates to pricing itself, whether it relates to tax determination, or any other manipulations that need to be done with the order, so that there is no back-end corrections that are required, and everything is fixed up at the starting point, at the offer level or order level. Now, what this also means is that the controls that are currently located mostly or largely at the back office level and are put on financial management to not only to implement but to maintain, should also be considered to be moved at the value stream level. What that means is that you are looking at transitioning controls from being downstream to upstream. And what it also means is that instead of operating within the compensating and detective framework as we see it today, it's moving into primary and preventative. Again, instead of correcting the problem once it's occurred with whatever corrective entries and whatever additional processing or calculations or whatever work that is being done today, for example, at the classic revenue accounting level, it is a lot more efficient to have these issues be controlled before they occur and correct them before they percolate down to the order level. So that once it gets down to financial management and once it gets down to accounting, the order provides a clean record that can be readily used to drive any of the postings that need to be done. So this is a really bird's eye view of what the group had worked on, and clearly you're going to find a lot more details around it within the document. And I think we're going to have quite a discussion around it with Miriam and Ruxana as the experts that were at the forefront of corralling the industry to work on these documents and these principles. Now, just a few more slides here. So what's coming next for the group? So we're looking at enhancing or continuing some of the work around transforming classic passenger revenue accounting to order accounting. There's a lot that has been done already, and I know that a lot of the vendors have been embracing the concept and looking into it and developing order accounting solutions, but clearly there's a bit more work that needs to be done. And that would also entail some enhancements to financial order integrity principles. But more importantly, one of the work packages that is ongoing throughout this year is definitions and future need for accountable documents vis-a-vis accounting documents. And there is a difference between the two, and this is what we're working on in terms of defining what is the difference, how this difference should be addressed, what is an accountable document in the order environment, what is an accounting document in the order environment, and how it should be, or what kind of processes that airlines may need to have in order to maintain their compliance with whatever regulatory frameworks that you have as far as accounting is concerned. And that leads to another area of work that the group has picked up on for this year, is looking at practices and principles for revenue recognition in view of whatever regulatory reporting standards that are out there. Now, this could be an example here in Europe would be IFRS 15 as contracts with customers, or it could be some of the sections of US GAAPs, could be some other frameworks. So, but the group for today is starting out to look at IFRS 15 and looking at where and how different revenue can be or should be recognized, and what is there from an accounting perspective and accounting documents perspective to support it. So this is the scope of work for the group for this year. So we'll have a few outputs that will be published for the industry consumption later on this year. So with this, I'm going to turn it back over to Kitty so we continue with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Miriam is here with me now, and I'm going to ask her a few questions with her industry hat on as chair of the Airline Retailing for Finance Working Group under IFAC. And so, Miriam, this document that was produced on financial management in the offers and orders environment, and this year's version that specifically dives into financial order integrity and key controls. Can you talk a little bit about what was the methodology used to develop the content, and maybe where was the starting point for the group? Is it starting from today, or is it starting from the future? How did you wrestle with that as a group?
So yes, as you could just hear from Andre, we started the work quite some time ago, based on IFAC's requirement for the Airline Retailing for Finance working group to evaluate the impact of the transformation to offers and orders. In the first place, I think the guess was that there should not be a big impact, just change tickets and EMDs with orders. But we all know the current challenges we have in revenue accounting. So we were working as a group immediately, identifying the challenges that we have, the pain points of today's finance and revenue accounting. So that was for sure in our view. But also we looked, of course, at the target state. And I mentioned target state here. It's important to get to not get lost in the transition. I know many colleagues always ask, yeah, but what's coming next? What's about the transition? I think as long as we have not established the target picture, we might get lost in the transition. So transition is not our first priority here. It will become at some stage, but first of all, we need to align on the target picture. So when we worked on the concept of a unique order with granular data, we could see a huge potential to streamline the data flows, quality of data, avoiding reprocessing, recalculation of values, corrections, as Andre just mentioned. Typically, this is all what we know in today's revenue accounting, so specific processes in the airline world. We also clearly could see that it will impact finance beyond revenue accounting. For instance, for Treasury to get more transparent data for cash flow forecast, the dates of settlements, for example, controlling, getting more data to be able to forecast revenues more accurately. For example, when we think at the interline business today, we only have the blocked seat and a special special service in a PNR, but the exact value calculated precisely only comes after the delivery. So to do any forecast, this is quite complex. With offers and orders, such a typical B2B process is actually a shopping process, and the supplier will immediately know about the financial value that both parties have agreed on. So to your question, Kitty, definitely a combination of both. We looked at today's reality, unfortunate reality, I would say, and we have a focus on target state.
That's wonderful. I've heard it spoken of that when we started all of this, we didn't have a target state for the way we are now. It came piece by piece, and there were lots of workarounds. And it's wonderful to hear that we're starting to form a target state and then move towards that, and have guidance on that. So how does the group's vision align with the future direction of financial management in the airline industry as a whole?
So the group's North Star, I would say that's a good word, is always the business reference architecture. And as explained, financial management was outlined in there, but what was not visible is the integration of it in the end-to-end view. So to document all our thoughts, we started with a review of the financial management capability that are outlined and the reference architecture, and starting from a very high level, going down to the sub-capabilities. That was documented already last year. We focused our work on customer order accounting and supplier order accounting. We realized that the industry has the opportunity to come closer to what finance and accounting looks like in other industries, having typical O2C and P2P processes. Second activity was then around the idea that finance cannot work in a silo, but that we should consider the end-to-end process and end-to-end capabilities. So as highlighted by Andre, the concepts of having correct values right from the beginning of the order, covering various aspects such as also taxation, settlement, contract management, compliance, and so on, underlines that commercial departments and finance need to closely align and work together. The integration points with upstream capabilities for such alignment, they were described last year already and published. So you have to remember the yellow triangles in the interactive document on the number 1 version. The group then continued the work and looked at the order integrity. There is a capability called order integrity, but no one could really explain what it all means. So we started with integrity in view of finance. Finance needs definitely to rely on the data. The data need to be accurate, consistent. The compliance need to be given, and this is coming from the very early stages of the offer creation down to the accounting and settlement. The controls that historically could take place only at the end based on tickets and just before posting and financial statements. So, I mean, I would like to highlight that we always performed well at finance. We did not publish wrong financial statements, but there was a lot of work ahead of it to get it right. Now all these should happen actually upstream. And important and obvious integrity requirements are, for example, the balancing of transactions where receivable or customer payment, they really need to match liabilities for services and taxes. Another example is the relevance of accurate delivery statuses, which will be the triggers for revenue recognition. So the group went through all current processes and sub-processes, including key controls, and did an impact assessment, as you will see in the document as well. Some processes are expected to disappear, some are replaced, and most are transformed. We also described the efficiency gains and locate the key controls either in upstream capabilities or in financial management. We applied the basic principles as just shown for the placement of controls, that is to have the control at the value stream level. Most order integrity controls are therefore expected to move to offer and order management. Others are still expected to take place in the order accounting based on the single source, which is the order record. In a nutshell, the group is well aware of the massive transformation ahead. We also understand the worries coming from offer and order colleagues. On the one hand, the commercial area would like to come closer to retailing using new technology and implementing online seamless shopping experience as a customer experience in other industries. But on the other hand, finance will also need a major process overhaul. By applying these basic principles and considering efficient order integrity, the airline financial management also comes closer to what other industries manage, how they manage finance and accounting. And I think our CEOs who expect correct data and have also to take decisions to steer the airlines will be happy if we manage to have this all done, including an efficient financial management organization, of course.
Excellent. And so this is a lot of work. You've just described a very large body of work. So how do we take this and use it as industry guidance, and then also with your other hat on within industry governance for determining standards and standard setting activities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's interesting actually, as I'm really active on both sides, on the advisory side and on the standard side. So in our group we have very intense and fruitful exchange with experts, which is really good. We feel that bringing this important and valuable information to a usable format will support the whole industry. Actually, every airline or every airline staff or system provider and system provider staff that starts the journey to offer and orders can get a really good overview and insight and understanding of the target picture. So I have the role on the standard setting board, and I cannot refrain from taking our work and the outputs to that area, also to give some guidance to the attendees of that working groups, because getting an aligned understanding of how it will and should work with offers and orders is a real challenge. We have so many experts of today's complex finance area, but we are talking a lot about this huge transformation. We need to make it somehow understandable, and that the working group members can also align between them, have this common understanding, and then dig into the details by following guiding principles, just to elaborate and getting the right business requirements together. So for most finance staff, as we were working in a silo, the engagement with the upstream processes becomes really obvious. We experience the same under the standard side. We need a lot of exchange with upstream processes, but we also hope that by giving the industry this guidance, it will also encourage the upstream involved colleagues to reach out to finance, because we just become more visible and reach out to the relevant expertise that is available. I know we have in finance and especially revenue accounting a lot of tax experts, revenue integrity experts, and even though the transformation is about changing processes, systems, data flows, maybe even organizations, the expertise will still be needed. Taxes will not just disappear by magic, unfortunately. So if you need to cover the requirements early enough in the process, at stage of the offer, we rather speak together in order to get it right.
So financial expertise isn't disappearing. It's just
No.
moving to the place where it's given beforehand instead of correcting things afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
That's super. Thank you, Miriam, very much. I'm going to ask Roxana to come on screen, and Miriam, I'll have you back in just a moment. And Roxana, you also wear two hats. You also are a member of the Settlement and Accounting Standards Board with Miriam, but you're also in the Industry Financial Services Working Group under IFAC. So you're on both sides of the IATA governance as well. So I wanted to ask you a few questions, and I'll start with the one about the industry. So with your industry hat on the Settlement and Accounting Standards Board, do you find this guidance useful? Do you find the guidance that's coming on the future of financial management and the reference business architecture, and the more details on the financial order integrity and key controls, does that come into play, and is it useful within the Settlement and Accounting Standards Board? Oh, Roxana, you're on mute, so if you'll unmute. Sorry. Thank you.
So actually, what Miriam said was exactly absolutely correct. We actually use the structured guidance documents which are there, and we focus them because to find out what are the most relevant challenges and opportunities available. Based on this guidance document, we actually set up priorities for our working group. And the working group then addresses the key issues and aligns this particular thing in the broader areas where we can help the industry move forward and standards are set. So this is how we are using the documents across in Settlement Accounting Standard Board, because we don't want to go and get bogged down with setting standards for something which is not going to be useful. So it's a very, very useful document.
Super. And then since you wear both hats and you're also in the Industry Financial Services Working Group, which has the unique role of advising IATA on IATA's financial services portfolio for the future, how do you see this guidance? Is it useful to you within that role in shaping, when you see the shape of the financial future for the airline industry, is it also useful in advising IATA within your advisory council role?
Yeah. I think it's important to understand that Industry Financial Services Working Group advises on the future financial services portfolio. And this industry level insights actually shape us together to make some recommendations. We need the IATA financial services to be adaptable and relevant as offers and orders are evolving. This particular guidance document helps us to say what is coming as a changing need for financial services and how we can make them efficient, secure, adaptable, and also it should be benefiting the airline industry and its customer. Let me cite one example on this one. We have this risk management which is always have been a challenge in finance. It has been a quite a reactive approach, but now given offer and order, we need to make it proactive. So these discussions were there in the Settlement Accounting Standard Board and also in the Industry Financial Advisory Board. So when we looked at the SASB, we said let's have a task force which reviews the salary risk management in totality before we set the standards. So a task force was created. However, from the Industry Financial Advisory Board, we are looking at industry financial services. We are looking at how we are going to transform our tomorrow financial services. How do we manage industry level governance? Know your customers, KYCs. How are we going to manage the anti-money laundering screening? How do we need industry level security and credit limit management? So this helps us from the both sides. So wearing hat on standards and on the advisory board is helping because you can connect the dots and see that you are aligning both the priorities.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm really glad that it's useful on both sides of the governance and useful for many different areas in moving the industry forward and adding value. If I can ask you slightly more specifically within your airline, or from an airline viewpoint, if not your specific airline, do you find that the industry guidance on financial management is also useful for internal airline offers and orders discussions that are being had?
I would say I totally feel that these are very useful documents, and they are being used. We use them for an internal offer and order discussion, as it provides a holistic view and direction, which any airline can adopt based on their own strategies. It's a framework, actually, I would say, rather than guidance, because then it actually connects the individual airline strategies with aligning with the broader industry standards, our regulatory requirements, and best practices. And the current document actually is articulating potential transformational requirements, potential efficiency areas in financial management. For example, tax, incentives. We have invoicing where we are talking about e-invoicing tomorrow. So this document actually helps everybody to get a consistent approach. For example, if we want to communicate internally or externally tomorrow, because we don't stand alone as an airline, it's an industry. So we need to connect to each other. And this is important, whether it's a discounting strategy or loyalty programs or bundling offer, we all need to have a common understanding. And this documents provide the base to be consistent across the industry.
Excellent, thank you. Do you find, does it help with seeing the transformation path that your airline might choose? So do you find that within your airline, when you're thinking about the financial management, does it help you choose the transformation path or even advise your colleagues in supporting offers and orders-based retailing or improving flows or gaining efficiency across your organization from a financial management hat?
Yeah, definitely, because I think as we see that, offer and order, there is a big shift and we all need to work together. It's not finance alone. We need to collaborate with our commercial colleagues and we need to understand that, a lot of controls are now moving upstream. So one of the things which, for example, we talk about proration. Today, proration is one of the aspects which is managed in revenue accounting. But tomorrow there is not going to be a proration. But we need to again understand that the settlement values which are going to be there at service level items need to be now coming through to the order record, which can help the accounting streams, financial accounting, to take the accounting entries or whatever for that particular order. So in this case, if we see that the integration of financial management will give a better visibility to all of us when we get into at overall level, because if you see the commercial aspect and finance aspect at the end of it, I think current structure doesn't allow, because lot of things happen at a later stage. But tomorrow's world, it is quite upfront, which will give us the ability as a business, as a industry, as an airline, to see a lot of values upfront. So, for example, if you look at a bundled offer, you know how this bundled offer is going to end up at the end of the order with what is the amount which is going to be left for the airline. So it gives quite a bit of visibility on this one.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Roxana. I'm going to go ahead and invite Miriam and Andre to come back on screen, and we'll have a bit more of a discussion across the three experts. If you don't mind? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. We have a few different themes to talk about in our next 10-15 minutes. And so I think the one I'd like to start with is the positive one, and that is, what are the main opportunities for revenue accounting and finance functions by transitioning to offers and orders? And I think both Miriam and Roxana, you've mentioned some of them. So I'm actually going to ask Miriam to start. What do you think is your top one or two, the main opportunities that you see?
I mean, it's obvious that we have the unique opportunity to de-specialize and get away from all these workarounds and specific processes we have established around tickets, CMDs, PNRs, that would allow finance function as such to attract talents. Today, getting young people from university, but showing them how a ticket is limited to 4 coupons, they don't even understand what I'm talking about. Modernization is the basis, and it will allow to use more and more new technology, and you know how fast this all goes. So I think it's a huge opportunity on this side.
Excellent. In case we have any young people on the call, it's limited to 4 because of a stapler. So in case there's any real young people on the call. Roxana, what do you see as the main benefit?
I think this is a game changer for finance. And if you ask me, it's basically better control, deeper insight, improved operational efficiencies. Because offer and order is going to bring out, from commercial side of it, agility to market changes, understanding customer trends, faster to market, I think quite a bit, and at the end of it, it will be a profitable thing for the organizations. So it's a game changer for me.
Excellent, thank you. Andre, I'm actually going to ask you the opposite question. What do you think are the main challenges airlines are going to face as they move forward, and are we addressing that?
I think, as with anything else, it's a change management, which is always a challenge. So it's it's difficult to turn things around overnight. So and especially something of this magnitude, because here you see you're talking about a massive stream transformation, which is then supported by the transformation downstream. So managing 2 at the same time is I think is going to be quite difficult or quite challenging. Now, I also think, well, it's a state of mind as well. I mean, Miriam just mentioned that it's difficult to attract younger talent into revenue accounting for maybe good reasons, but it's also difficult maybe for people that have been core of revenue accounting to kind of transform as quickly as maybe the industry would like to. So again, that kind of goes back to change management. Now, what it also means is that, and I think I really like the point that Miriam made around what are we doing it about it, maybe not collectively as an industry, but individually at maybe airlines level, is this is about repurposing the existing talent as well. I mean, yeah, I probably shouldn't say it, but taxes aren't going anywhere, even if anybody wants them to go. So the expertise has to be there, but it has to be reapplied, and it has to be refunneled into designing those future solutions and having them sort of done with the precision and expertise that is in place today, but at the different level. And I think that is also a bit of a challenge, as in how you repurpose the talent and how you move it from being involved purely at the back office functions into collaborating and working very closely together with those folks that are designing upstream offer order management systems and embedding their current knowledge of taxes, of charges, fees, whatever the case may be, at the upstream level, so we can embrace this first time right principle. So I think that's where some of the difficulties are going to hit us.
That leads perfectly to another question. What are the most critical things that we get right, the most critical key controls that airlines need to implement to ensure that financial order integrity? And maybe I'll ask Miriam that. Miriam, are there, in doing this work with the Airline Retailing for Finance Working Group, were there certain key controls that will be moving up front that were just critical to get right?
Yes, I think everything that touches on finance is critical. At the end, we sign for our financial statements, so they need to be correct, otherwise we have a huge problem. But I also think there are some good opportunities with today's technology to get them right and in a quite easy way. You know, if I buy on internet, I am not able to change the prices. So by having basic IT technology features in place, we should be able to have key controls and making sure the order is the integrity is given, the amounts are balanced. I mean, as a customer, that's the minimum I would expect. I'm not choosing products and services, putting them in my shopping basket at a certain price, and at the end asked to pay for something else. I mean, that's just basics. But today, all of this is possible, especially with our servicing processes and with the manual and human interaction, where of course always errors can happen.
Excellent. Thank you. That actually makes me think, so we're learning a lot as we go along in the industry, and as airlines implement and have their own implementations of this, they're learning as we go forward, since this is definitely kind of a future state that we're moving into. So Roxana, from working on the standards board and from looking across it, is there a way in which you've seen that is successful for airlines who are implementing to use those to enhance the industry work, to bring those learnings back into the standards work and the industry work to benefit across the industry?
Yes, actually, if you see the overall, whatever we do, I think we listen to what is happening around and we see what is happening in the current financial world. And those challenges are brought forward to both the boards to see how we can find out solutions, and they become a seamless process for us tomorrow from the financial accounting. And this is where we look at order management system, that a lot of key controls are embedded into that. So this is a time where we are looking at the design change completely at those systems. So order management hands over a complete order in a structured way, which is as we said, getting right the first time. So if it's there, then it is handed over. So this, we are looking from both the industry perspective to see that, how the standards can be developed and how we can manage from the advisory from the industry financial services, where industry can support. Because though we get into the bilateral agreements, but there will be some where we will have to have the industry support to manage this as an industry overall.
Excellent, thank you. And Andre, I'm just going to ask you to tag on to that. So you talk to airlines from an IATA perspective and from your work within the standards boards and as a secretary of standards board. How do you encourage them to bring that real world expertise that Roxana is talking about as they do move forward into the standards groups? How do you get involved? Let me ask it that way. Andre?
How do no. I'm just kind of trying to process now. How do I get involved?
No, how do airlines?
Do I get others to
how do airlines get involved? How do we bring those airlines into the room with that implementation knowledge?
Yeah, I think, I mean, jokes aside, I think it's a super important question because any standard is just as good as it is being implemented. And only once it's been tested and only once we actually have proper implementation inputs into how it works. So, I mean, of course, any any implementation is voluntary, and anybody can implement it with any provider in any which way that they see fit. But clearly, what we're trying to encourage from a standards administration perspective is that we actually get input from those that have tried, that have tested, that have maybe tried different ways of doing it, and bringing it back to the table for all the airlines to and provide partners to consider and to enhance the standards. Now, one way of encouraging, which happens relatively often, is we are, from an IATA's perspective, we're happy uh, to take input in an anonymous way without any of the implementers, whether those are airlines or whether those are providers, disclosing their implementation practices or techniques and identifying whatever issues or whatever challenges that they see with it, and us kind of bringing it as IATA administrators, bring it to the table in a neutral way, so that it doesn't really reflect in any funny way on any of the participants. And I think that works quite well because obviously there are many different ways to implement. There are many different ways of doing things, and in certain cases, these implementations are a competitive advantage of a particular airline or a particular provider, which you clearly don't want to expose at the industry level, and you cannot because that is going to break the antitrust immunity that we operate within. So by providing this sort of
Anonymized.
service, thank you, I think brings in quite a lot of encouragement for people to share. Everybody is obviously welcome to share in an open surrounding, in an open forum as well, but to help people not to be shy, then I think that's one of the ways of doing it.
Excellent. But in order to provide that anonymous service, please, airlines, get involved in system providers, get involved in the standards making working groups, and come be a part of them, even if you're quietly saying things anonymously.
Actually, maybe just to dwell a bit more on this, Kitty, a very concrete example of how this is implemented in practice is the very reference architecture, which is now an industry artifact and a recommended practice. But the way it was designed, it was based on donations provided by consortium airlines to IATA, at which point IATA actually stripped it of any particularities or stripped it of any sort of identifiable markings of any of the airlines that have tried or that have used it, and combined a generic version that kind of made it impossible to identify any of the particular airlines that may have deployed it. But the true reality of this reference architecture is that it doesn't come out of thin air, and it doesn't come appear as a theoretical exercise. It actually comes as an input from those that have been on the journey to offers and orders and that have already set some experience or active projects in implementing it. So that's the way it works, and I think it's a very efficient way of doing things.
Maybe, Kitty, we can say that's very important to always update the standards whenever implementers notice something is not correct, and we don't pretend to create 100% correct standards. We just do what we can, but actually the truth comes in the details, or the devil comes in the details, and when implementing, you might notice things that might be wrong, either even on the IFAC side, things we should correct in the reference architecture, but also on the standard side, and we are changes or change requests are always welcome. That's how we make also a standard sustainable. It needs to evolve, and therefore we have the releases. So I think that's all fine with it, and I think with new technology, that's also not a problem to evolve the standards.
Thank you. Okay, we have lots of questions coming in, and we only have 5 minutes left, so we won't be able to get to all of them. But I do want to say we have had a lot of questions about transition, and to Miriam's point earlier when we were talking, we really are focused on what is the target end state before we get to transition. But I know that there's much more to come this year, and that there are various groups that are thinking about transition and how that will go and where that goes. So stay tuned for more webinars and more information coming from the industry. And if you have submitted questions, we will try to follow up on those questions as we move forward. And if we'll go to the next slide, I want to put on the screen for you some resources. So that everybody can take a look at these resources. So we heard a lot today about financial order integrity. We heard about the importance of guidance for the industry at an industry level. We heard about the importance of standards and that these are evolving, that they're changing. And so here are some key areas where you can get more information. And find the latest updated financial management in the offers and orders environment document. It's version 2. But there's also lots of other documentation on the reference business architecture, on business cases, on procurement considerations, delivering with orders and digital identity. So there's lots there for you to grab hold of. I also want to note that we do have, and tooting my own horn, as it's my role here in IATA, that we do have the Airline Retailing Maturity Index, which does validate companies against the standards and provide visibility to the industry on these various standards and on how companies are aligning to them and the capabilities that they have. As well as there's an IATA Strategic Partnerships Program, and lots of the vendors that are in the Strategic Partnerships Program also have the benefit of taking part in the standards process with their knowledge of the technology. So with kind of all of that going on, when you reach out and you take a look at this new document, one little thing is, us finance people, we didn't make just a standard document, we made it interactive. And so as Miriam talked about earlier, we talked about the integrations with other parts of the reference architecture. So when you do take a look at the document, please know that it's best viewed on a laptop so that you can click and have all the pop-up boxes pop up and be able to view all of the parts of it. And if that was a lot to take in the last 5 minutes, don't worry, because our comms team is going to send a communication to everyone who's on this webinar and has registered for it. In the coming days, they will send out a communication that kind of wraps all of this up and gives you access to both the video and gives you access to the slides. So that will be coming soon. And so just with that, I would like to say a final thank you to Andre and Roxana and Miriam, who have all joined us with their expertise, and also to everyone who joined this webinar for our audience. Thank you very much for giving us your time and your attention, and we look forward to bringing you more information and more content as we go through this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.